It's the 5th of February, 2025. Coming up on today's Global Intelligence Agency Operations Report. President Trump is now being called Donald P.T. Barnum Trump worldwide because they claim it's just one circus act after another coming from the White House. The latest? He plans to take over the Gaza Strip, displacing millions of people in order to build condos and casinos. Is there more to this story? Are they playing into an old prophecy? Today we welcome back Agent M as we take a deep dive into what's really happening in the Middle East. And what is fractal banking? The Fiat System? And what did this really mean for you? And the Trump operatives are telling everyone they owe money to that they will let me build the Golden Age AI so they can take it over in the future. But will it work? Well, welcome back, everyone. It is the 5th of February. We are just 3 days away from the first Lionsgate of the year. And we have a lot to talk about today. And we have a couple of little surprises for you, too. Okay. The President Trump is being called Donald P.T. Barnum Trump behind the scenes because it's literally one circus act after another right now. They're from trying to take over Greenland to the Panama Canal. He apparently would like to take back the Panama Canal. Apparently, he thinks the United States government actually built the Panama Canal because that's what the internet says. But that is completely untrue. The Panama Canal was actually built by funds that came from the Alpha System. And it went through at the time, remember the world was a different place at that time, it went through families such as the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds. And because of the transition that the Rothschilds were implementing on behalf of the Order of the Dragon, the Panama Canal was transferred over to China, allegedly for a small sum of money. The Panama Canal is important for a number of different reasons. Number one, the Panama Canal is basically the only way from the East Coast to the West Coast of the U.S. Expeditiously, but in reality, there's not a whole lot of expeditiousness going on through the Panama Canal. It's extremely slow. There has been little to no maintenance on the canal, and it definitely hasn't been upgraded in any way, shape, or form. There are many other ways to get through from the East Coast to the West Coast or vice versa, other than the Panama Canal. But of course, this administration doesn't want anything to do with anything like that. So we could have high-speed rail like the rest of the Western world, but they don't want that either, mainly because, well, they can't afford it. The next thing is we still hold the lien on the Panama Canal. Regardless of what these people want to do, the lien is still held by now the Golden Age AI. Now, I guess you could say it's the Kimberly Gogan Age AI. And therefore, it will not be able to be leveraged. Now, the benefits, they believe, because they have little information and little knowledge, is that if they got a hold of the Panama Canal, they would be able to trade against all of the cargo while it is in the canal. This is the primary reason why they never upgraded the Panama Canal in the first place. The Panama Canal used to yield a lot more than the cost of moving goods through the canal. So it's, number one, it's a pinch point, I guess you would say. Pinch point being it's a way to hold imports and exports hostage of the United States. I'm sure that has been threatened recently based on what we're hearing and the dislike for the Donald P.T. Barnum Trump show, or circus, as they're calling it behind the scenes. And things are really heating up everywhere. So I thought I'd take a little bit of time and talk about what is going on in the Middle East, because that is front and center right now, and it's causing a lot of issues at the moment. So let's take a look. Apparently, Trump would like to take over the Gaza Strip and displace all of the people that currently live in the Gaza Strip. This is something I heard about back in 2010, and also have heard about from our contacts in the Middle East for quite a long time now. This is not new. However, the fee to displace all of these people is very high, somewhere at least around $200 billion, which is something they don't have. So we'll get into that in just a second. But first of all, let's hear it from the orange circus ringleader himself.
I'm delighted to welcome
with the Israeli Prime Minister grinning by his side, U.S. President Donald Trump made a shocking announcement. Contrary to initial plans, Phase 3 of the Gaza ceasefire reconstruction is unlikely. Instead, Trump envisions something different.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, will own it, and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site. I do see a long-term ownership position, and I see it bringing great stability to that part of the Middle East.
The forced displacement of a population by an occupying power, Israel, violates international law. Trump reiterated his call for Egypt and Jordan to take in the 2 million displaced Palestinians, a plan both countries have rejected. Still, Trump believes he'll convince Arab nations to sign on to his vision for Gaza, ideas Benjamin Netanyahu also endorses.
President Trump is taking it to a much higher level. He sees a different future for that piece of land that has been the focus of so much terrorism. I think it's something that could change history.
Trump referred to Gaza repeatedly as hell and a demolition site, but he believes it can be transformed.
I envision a world, people living there, the world's people. I think you'll make that into an international, unbelievable place. I think the potential in the Gaza Strip is unbelievable. And I think the entire world, representatives from all over the world will be there, and they'll live there, Palestinians also. I don't want to be cute, I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East.
And in the midst of a fragile ceasefire, Trump made yet another controversial remark about Palestinian sovereignty over the West Bank and whether the U.S. supports annexing it.
We haven't taken a position on it yet, but we will be we'll be making an announcement probably on that very specific topic over the next 4 weeks.
On Wednesday, the Israeli Prime Minister meets with the U.S. National Security Advisor and Defense Secretary at the Pentagon. And he wraps up his visit to the United States on Capitol Hill, meeting with senior congressional leaders. Kimberly Helkett, Al Jazeera, the White House.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.
Well, apparently the Gaza Strip, if Trump had his way, would become the new Riviera. He's also made mention of building condos, casinos, and large hotels, and it's just going to be this amazing place after they displace people that have been living there for, probably about a century. Kind of ridiculous, really. But there's more to this story. In the grab for in-ground resources is, let's just say, it's on. There is a lot of talk about in-ground resources also in Ukraine. In exchange for aid to the Ukraine, he would like to take over their rare earth minerals. Well, again, Trump deep state operatives, I hold the lean to all of Eastern Europeans' resources. Matter of fact, the Chinese already tried this one, guys. And, it's about, if I go through the entire old Russian Empire map, probably about 4 quadrillion at this point in liens against all of the resources there. Also with the Gaza Strip, the Russian intelligence and Russian scientists were actually the ones in the 1970s to do all of the geological reports on the Strip, finding an enormous amount of natural gas, also known as LNG. And we, at that point in time, gained the lien against all of the natural gas in the region. They're trying to find resources to back their ridiculous crypto program or whatever they think they're going to be issuing these days for currency, and it will never, ever, ever work. And if you don't believe me, Trump operative people, you can just call the Chinese and ask them how many times we've done this together, where I've hit reject and they've tried to leverage at the Shanghai Exchange. This has been going on with them for about a decade, and you guys are just repeating the same operations that failed in China, thinking what? Something was going to change here? Again, you owe us a whole lot of money, and I know you can't pay it. I gave you kind of an offer, and you're going to try to turn it against me, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in the broadcast. But let's continue on for a few, talking about what's going on in the Middle East. There's been an enormous amount of activity going on in the Middle East lately, and so I thought it was a great time to bring back Agent M. So, Agent M, welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Let's continue talking before we go into some other countries and some other Trump operative P.T. Barnum circus acts. Let's talk about the Gaza Strip a little bit more.
Well, as you know, and everyone who has been following, the Gaza Strip have been for about 15 months been under extreme bombardment campaign. Basically, the whole region was demolished, and you have about 2.2 million people that are now basically homeless. There is no means for life there. There is no clean water. There is no food. They've been starved, basically. You know, they live on whatever they could, find. And now the phase 3 of what they call the ceasefire, it's basically phase 3 of the plan. It's a part of the Greater Israel plan. I've known about it for years. And, the issue with, displacing the people to Jordan and Egypt and possibly Western Iraq as well. The only reason it hasn't really been fulfilled is because these nations and these elites or governors of these nations haven't really received what they were promised to get. I know for sure, for example, Jordan alone, they were required to do two things. The king of Jordan is required to resign guardianship over the Temple Mount, the area where basically the Aqsa Mosque is. That's one part. I remember he wanted 200 billion for this alone. So you assume he needs another 200 billion to sign on, taking on 1 million or half of the population to his size. So that's 400 billion the Trump administration don't have to pay.
Quickly, the King of Jordan is a member of the Rothschild family, isn't that the case?
His wife is a member of the Rothschild family. He is a distant as well. I remember Mayor Rothschild calling him a distant cousin. So yeah, he could be. But he is of a lower caliber. Like, I don't know, for some reason his wife was higher. Lower caliber. His father was actually just a regular agent for the CIA. And even though he was a king, and he was taking about $1 million a month and spending money from the CIA. So yeah, it's grandfathered in.
Yeah. It's always about the money, isn't it, for all of these quote unquote heads of state or front folks for the New World Order, one world government people that they'd like to be anyway at this point. That's a hope and a wish and a prayer. Okay, so a little bit more about the Gaza Strip. I mean, obviously, the Temple Mount has always been a main focal point for all religions, not just Islamic religion. There are many people that go there every year during special high holidays and that type of thing. Now, we have found a lot of space junk underneath the Temple Mount.
Oh, yeah.
Where they try to use the people for many different reasons there. Also, there was something else there at one point in time which would have powered a nearby gate to what I call hell, or the lower astral.
Mm-hmm.
So it was all about, utilizing people's energies and prayers and putting gematria in words and those types of things to keep these things open. So let's talk a little bit more about what the people are going to think, if something like this were to happen. Obviously, there has been many attempts to get aid into the Gaza Strip, to get food. I know that Egypt has made some attempts. Other countries have made attempts to get food and medical aid into the region, and it is not being permitted. And if anything, they are actually harming people who try to bring supplies into that area. Let's talk a little bit about this, what the people are going to think. Are there any prophecies in Islam or in other religions that would be related to what's potentially going to happen now?
Yes, well, in Islam, the Prophet Muhammad has extensive prophecies, and they're all in the timeline. And he even, basically since his death all the way to now, and maybe even beyond, it's all prophesized. And there is a whole science, and they call it eschatology. And you have to be well versed in everything until before you get there. And in this, there are many prophecies, but as the timeline that has been drawn by these prophecies, now we're at the point where what you call the prophecy of where they call it, it's basically in some versions of this prophecy, it straight says the Amrik, which is Americans. And in other versions of the prophecy, it talks about basically the bullies of the Romans, or the modern Roman Empire, which is, the U.S. And it talks about them taking this piece of land all the way to Ashkelon, and by force, meaning that they will deploy troops. And it's very, I guess you can say ironic, but when the American Secretary of Defense was asked, if they are willing to deploy troops to the Gaza Strip, he replied by, they're looking into all options, meaning he didn't deny the fact that they might deploy troops there. Now, this is a part of a few prophecies, all in the same timeline, meaning in the same year or two. And it talks about, deployment in the Gaza into Ashkelon, and all the way, and some of it even into Aleppo. And this is what will be maybe news. And it's also the siege of Alexandria in Egypt. So if you look at it now, you look at what's happening. Jordan is saying, no, we're not taking any people because you don't, any people from Gaza because you haven't held your end of the deal. We're not doing it for free. And the Egyptians are basically doing the same. So, now there's talk about, Egypt is mobilizing their army so that they will stop forced migration. But the funny part, I'll tell you this. So all these governments, unfortunately, their supporters are not the best kind of people. They're usually low-life thugs. I'm talking the people they can mobilize on the streets. So what the Egyptian government did was basically mobilize their followers to go protest near the borders with Gaza. And what ended up is there were, trucks of supplies that are waiting there to enter Gaza by people who donated from, all over the world, mostly regional. And these people, they started looting these trucks that were meant to go there to Gaza to help the people. And at the same time, they're protesting to help the people so they don't get, kicked out of their homes from Gaza. So there's schizophrenia there. And it is funny when you look at it this way, how politics is. It's just a show. It's a circus.
Well, I think our current administration has taken that circus to a whole new level, haven't they?
Yeah.
One of the other things that has come up recently is from the country of Iraq. And Iraq obviously has, as most Middle Eastern countries do, enormous amounts of pallets of United States dollars that have been paid over the years as bribe money to various folks. Also, in some cases, you could say the pallets of cash were for free oil coming from the region. And it's not just Iraq, but in this particular case, when the announcement was made most recently about building big condos and all of these types of things, it kind of set most every single country off in the Middle East because they've been told that they were going to get paid last week. They were also told they'd be able to cash in these pallets of cash. They've been told many different things. And so it's not about the people. It's not about the displacement of people or the disgracing of Islam or anything of that nature, as far as Gaza is concerned. In this particular case, they saw dollar signs. They saw lots of condos, the new Middle Eastern Riviera, and all of these big, big promises by the United States. But that set everybody on fire in the last 24 hours. They were all calling the White House asking, what the heck is going on? Where is our money? Where is our money? We are supposed to be able to cash in these pallets of cash. In fact, in the country of Iraq, some of the things that we've been hearing are things like they might sell, let's call it a version of savings bonds. For those of you that are, know a little bit about American history, you remember we sold these bonds during World War II. We also sold them during the Vietnam War, where you could purchase as an average everyday citizen a savings bond of sorts, and then you would get interest on that savings bond. And in Iraq, they're trying to initiate the same thing because there's no more money. There's no other ways to take money. They've cut every corner they can cut. Insiders within the country are talking about the fact that they're not going to be able to make payroll. And everybody is just trying to make it, through to last week, last Friday. Obviously, this is starting to blow up. They keep talking and they just don't care what any country or even these, by country, I don't necessarily, they definitely don't care about the people and definitely not even the people in America because, I'm going to go into that in a little bit. It's just getting worse and worse. But they don't even care about the promises that they've made to heads of state for doing their little dirty work. So, Agent M, do you have a few minutes to kind of elaborate on that, like what you're hearing behind the scenes as far as payouts and payoffs?
Well, what I do know, since you mentioned Iraq specifically, is that they are in deep trouble. Now, this country, for just 2-3 years ago, had a surplus of $100 billion. Now they have zero, or close to zero, and they had very hard time, paying employees this month, and they are struggling, month after month to actually secure that. In fact, this month they were actually, I would say, a few days to a week late. So they came up with a few things to try to, fix the problem quick. And the very first thing they did was raise the customs fee for all gold and jewelry 500%. And so that was number one. Number two is they thought about they putting old money that is ripped and torn back into circulation. They haven't acted on it yet, but that was on the table. Number three is they started to borrow money from the people. And what you just said about, what you call saving bonds, I call them war bonds because they usually are issued during wars. And it's basically, each bond is equivalent in dollars to $300-400 to $1,000. And, you get interest rate of 6 to 7% payable within 2 to 4 years. And so they're trying to raise approximately $1.5 billion worth of bonds from the people, and hoping that it will, pay for the next month or two of whatever minimum expenses they can afford. The other things that they are doing is, raising taxes here and there. They're trying to find any way where they can actually get some money so that the government can keep running. Because there are many whistleblowers that came out and were like, hey, we have almost zero money. We're not going to make it this year. So with all of that, now you have, so they were promised money and no money came. And, they've been lied to. They've been given fake piles of cash. And now all of a sudden, the fake Trump comes on TV with possibly fake Netanyahu at this moment, because I don't know who that is anymore, and says that we're going to rebuild Gaza with this and make it into the Middle Eastern Riviera. Well, you need money to do that, and that's money you don't have. So either way, it's not possible. And there is a lot of hypocrisy there, if you notice what he was talking about. So he was talking about it's impossible to rebuild it while the people are there and they have to be displaced. But it was not impossible to bomb the hell out of it while 2-point-something million people were there, So it's okay to destroy it while people are there, but it's not okay to build it while people are there. So yeah, I think it's just like, yeah, he said that they are going to rebuild it, but they don't know that they don't actually, Trump don't have the money to rebuild it. It's just talk. It's just a way to dangle a carrot and tell them, hey, listen, if you don't do what we say, you're not going to get paid. It's a circus. It's a show.
Well, they certainly know how to dangle a lot of carrots, don't they? While we're on the subject, I wanted to ask you, I know that in the past we've discussed the fact that Mayor Rothschild used to talk to you quite a bit. I know that Mayor was responsible for the Middle Eastern region. to some degree for a long time. I don't know if he's still even, I don't think he's still breathing at this point, but who knows? They've got clone after clone after clone.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Netanyahu, though. Did he ever mention Netanyahu to you?
He did, and he called him Bibi. And there was a time where he was trying to introduce me to a whole list of people. So I remember I had a missed call, him and what's that lady's name, the head of the CIA at that time. I don't know if she is still there. And of course, King of Jordan and Netanyahu. He wanted me to introduce these people to me because he was offering me, presidency of Iraq and possibly, heading the region. So, yes, he did talk. And what he told me is that he is secular and there is no religion. He doesn't really believe in any religion or anything like that. Of course, he tries to paint his friends as good people. We all know that's not the true statement. But yeah, he never talks ill about them. But of course, he tells to stay relevant and to gain credibility or trust. He would spill secrets, mostly personal, usually about personal preferences and their lifestyle behind the scenes and stuff like that. But as a character, as a leader, he does not take digs at them. Usually that was the case. Now, for his enemies, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, he really hated because he believed that he should be, or his son should be, the one that is crowned there at that time.
So as far as Netanyahu, would he have considered him one of theirs?
Yes.
So the interesting thing, and the reason why I ask this question is because, the Trump operatives, et al., always seem to be more in line with
Rothschild.
They almost seem like no, actually. They seem to be more in line with the Black Sun agenda. The Black Sun should be in charge, that kind of thing. I mean, sure, for 3,000 years they worked for Rothschild, or they were considered a step below, I guess you would say, in the way of the world. But lately they've been trying to take over all of Rothschild's assets. Meaning assets, I don't necessarily mean money. I just mean people, countries, trying to kick out their folks. That's probably the reason why they wanted the King of Jordan to resign, I'm guessing, because he is known as a Rothschild asset in a distant relative. But for Trump to buddy-buddy with Netanyahu, that seems a little off to me. Are they leaning on the Rothschild family now?
Well, I'm going to give you a piece of information that might shock you. I don't think I ever told you this, but this was a discussion between me and Mayor Rothschild at the time. And remember, this was in 2019. He told me that Trump is a Trojan horse working for Rothschild and that he personally put him in the White House.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's an interesting tidbit of information. You think he's telling the truth?
I believe so. Meaning Trump was inserted into the Black Sun, or was, but elevated somehow into the Black Sun, given all this position, being in touch with you, getting the credibility that he can get the money himself, and then raising in ranks, but behind the scenes, he's working for the Rothschild. That's what he told me. He didn't tell me the part where, he's getting money from you, but that's how I now know it.
Huh.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, that is a very interesting little tidbit of information right there. I'm kind of a little bit, they always seem like they're on the other side of the fence, but I guess they're part of the whole plan. But I guess when you put the pieces of the puzzle together, it kind of makes sense now, because they seem to be following that, 7 currencies or 10 or 9 or whatever number they're at now. Currencies, 9 regions, 9 heads of state of each region, that type of thing, of course, underneath their umbrella. And that makes sense to me, Perhaps they were hired to destroy America. Now, that makes even more sense to me because, according to the Rothschild plan, the center of the world is supposed to be China soon.
Well, yes. Well, I'll tell you more of what he told me since we, on the topic. So, Trump was inserted basically to rise in power on the Black Sun side, and so Rothschild could rule behind the scenes Black Sun, right? But at the same time, yes, true. He told me personally about his plan to destroy America. I'm sorry to say this if you are going to be offended, but for example, he told me about Black Lives Matter. That was part of his plan, and he told me that they're going to bankrupt it, collapse it, and people are going to start to flee from America. It will be boarded in, and the only way to go out is through boats, and even then they will shoot down or sink all these boats. So yes, that was part of the plan, and to move the power to China. However, he said, also, so the Middle East would be one gigantic power center with Israel. The way he explained it to me, he wanted Iraq to be the one on top, and Israel is just a part of the alliance. But we know that behind the scenes, it's just a greater Israeli project. And at that time, I played, that I believed him. Because,
I've also heard the same, it's kind of one of those things where they would do, what I heard from a different member of the Rothschild family was they are going to destroy America and buy it back for pennies on the dollar, quote unquote. And this was in 2013. But as it relates to the Middle East, they do this little whisper campaign. They tell you what you want to hear and tell you you're going to be on top.
That's correct.
Oh, Iraq will be on top, or Saudi Arabia also is going to be on top. So is Jordan going to be on top? Afghanistan's going to be on top. Everybody's going to be on top. That's a lot of tops. I don't know how many tops you have, but really there's only like one top typically in any three-dimensional shape. But yeah, and they do the same thing with like the United Nations. They'll promise, 50 or 60 different people, you're a shoo-in, I've got your back, all of that. And then it's deny, reassess, blame. And then they blame it on somebody else. Somebody else is, going to be the next this or the next that. So, sorry, my cousin, other Rothschild, insert name here, had dibs on the call and there was nothing I could do about it at that point, I had owed him a favor or, some crazy talk like that. And then that's it, it's really interesting. There are some people that made mention on the news, I think it was a local news channel somewhere in the Middle East, about not believing them, and by them, the assumption was the American administration come February if they don't do what they said they were going to do. And I think these statements were made sometime right after the election results happened. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I can tell you, yeah. Well, this is not from a news station or channel. This is through, you can say, private sources that I have. But the source is an ex-head of intelligence in the Middle East. And he said, and this was probably in September, October of last year, and he said, comes, February, if, they don't do the things they promised they would do, nobody's going to believe them anymore. So that's a highly credible source.
And we haven't heard anything more from that source?
Well, soon, I hope I can. I'm waiting for the month to end. And this specific source, I don't have it. I have other people to talk to where, let's say, the calls and talks are in private and, nothing is monitored. That's the only reason I'm not phoning the person.
Right. The interesting part about all of this is I wonder if it wasn't just the money for the Iraqis who were calling, this is Iraqi government members, that were calling, or leaders, let's call them leaders, because you have religious leaders there too. So the leaders that were calling the White House in the last 24 hours about complaining, maybe it wasn't just about the money. Maybe they told them as well that they were not going to move forward with the Greater Israel project, that they were going to do other things with the Gaza Strip. And clearly, today it was announced that there was an alliance between America and Gaza, and now the U.S. is going to own it, according
Take ownership.
to that's what they claim. Yep.
Well, if you go back to all the way to the start of the war, as you remember, and all the listeners as well, that Gaza area and all the natural resources were promised in shares to all the people who participated in the war.
Right.
And now, after the war basically ended, you're going to say the Americans own it? It's the ultimate backstab. So I'm sure many people are pissed.
Well, welcome to our world, right? I mean, I had my back was pretty sore there for a little while after trying to do business with those Trump operatives, and I wouldn't do business with those people ever again. I've said that, and there's many reasons why. But this is just another clear indicator of their integrity, of having absolutely zero.
Well, I would give an advice to anyone who wants to do business with the Trump administration or the SSP operatives. If you're going to shake hands with them, just count your fingers.
Yeah. Well, exactly. You might want to bring along some kind of a lie detector anyway. I mean, they know how to pass that stuff, but, really, it's not what a person says, it's what they actually do. And from what I've seen, this is just another piece of the circus, that's going on. But it looks like there's a lot of balls that are being juggled over there, and the King of Jordan's not that happy. Everybody is not that happy right now. I know that Egypt is complaining. They were also supposed to be the head of the region there, and everybody's pretty well livid, and I'm not even sure $200 billion or whatever was promised to the King of Jordan is going to be enough money to override his quest for power. So
no,
thirst for power.
Yeah, there's a lot of let's call arm wrestling happening, and of course, main thing, people in power, they have two flaws usually. It's more power, and greed. So the promises are free. Delivering on them costs money. Money they don't
Yeah.
have.
Money and probably a little bit of integrity, like they actually care if they deliver on those promises. That's the whole thing. They're like, oh, yep, deny, reassess blame, look over here, not there. It's the same thing that would have happened, had you believed what Rothschild was telling you. Would have been the same thing,
Yeah.
And that's a very interesting take, though. Takeaway on what you heard directly from Rothschild about Trump.
Yeah.
They're all liars, so you just never know. But, in this particular case, it's kind of looking that way because the laws they're passing, the things that they're doing, looks more like destroy America. That would be DAGA. Destroy America into the ground again or something. I don't know. Maybe that's why we haven't heard a whole lot of yipping from the Chinese lately. Maybe they are doing the work for the Chinese and they intend on destroying America. Behind the scenes, they're talking about giving it a few more months, meaning they wouldn't announce publicly that he was dead until April or May. And so my guess would be is they're going to continue with the crazy circus until then. And then they're going to have Vance come out as the hero or whatever, making some kind of deal. Meanwhile, if you're American and you're listening to this, I hope you speak Chinese. And told you it's going to be bumpy through the first couple of weeks of February. And then after that, it's probably going to smooth out. We're hoping. If not before, let's hope. But we got a few other things to discuss. So Agent M, I do appreciate you being here today. And is there anything else you'd like to let everybody know about what's going on?
Well, they are trying to, like you said, they're planning on at some point in the near future to announce that Trump is dead to get rid of all the, their obligations. But meanwhile, they are planning on milking everyone else in the Middle East that has still some hope that they will be paid. And they are starting to, basically try to destabilize more. Don't forget that, the regime in Syria was toppled, even after 14 years of actual war, it was toppled in 12 days. And that was by design and organized. And so what they're doing now is, and if you don't know, the population of Syria are predominantly Sunni Muslims. And what they're doing is now almost enticing the Sunnis in Iraq, because that is also one of the locations they want to displace people from Gaza to. It's just not announced publicly yet. They're enticing them to rebel or maybe even bear arms. And so you're looking at the picture, the whole thing, that the rebels who are now the new government in Syria will aid them. They will back them to fight the oppressors, that are pro-Iranians in Iraq. And it's a big circus. And, money-wise, they can't pull it off. But if you play on the greed of the people involved in the region, they might, cause some problems. Remember the guys it's basically mini CIA now in Syria. And I don't think those got paid either. So
Nope.
So we'll see. It's going to be interesting. You have Turkey involved. You have Saudi Arabia involved, and all of the scene. And everybody was promised something. And I believe it's going to erupt. And I think it's soon. But I want to tell everybody that, at the end, Source always has a plan. And we'll tell you that, we will prevail eventually.
We will. We already have, actually. So
That's correct.
we're getting, closer and closer to helping the people, being more focused on the people than we are even getting involved in their crazy, money here, money there, that kind of thing. So, you build a system built on greed and fear, and you can't execute on either. But I'm definitely seeing this 9 different regions throughout the world starting to take shape. Panama, Greenland. It's just interesting how it's all kind of unfolding. Areas of the world he claims he wants to take over, that are going to belong to America. And I'm sure they promised the Trump operatives that America would be at the helm. And hence the reason why they want to take all these properties and own them. Or allegedly the U.S. government is going to own them. Not like the U.S. government owns anything. We all know that. But, meanwhile, back at the ranch, China's sitting back and just waiting it out to see how long it takes them to actually hand over America to the U.S. I mean, the tariffs are going to break us. It's going to increase the price of pharmaceuticals. They're going to break the insurance companies this way too. It's going to be a nightmare here. Increase the cost of food. The cost of food's going to go up. Obviously a lot of produce in the United States comes through Mexico and from Mexico. Now you add those tariffs on top of that. I mean, I wouldn't want to be trying to buy an avocado at the grocery store 6 months from now.
No.
Because you think if you pay $2 now or whatever it is for one avocado, you're going to spend probably $8 for an avocado should this actually come to fruition. So they want to starve us out too. I think U.S. is the new Gaza.
Well, I think the way they especially these families, or Rothschild to be specific, the way they look at it is they don't have an allegiance to any country. Yeah. So even though we think it is that the Chinese that they're going to transfer power to, it's actually probably just a game to play them, to get them. Their baby is Israel. That's the focus for them because of the, Guardian Gate program that they used to, run, and, that dark gate that used to be there.
Out of urban base, yeah.
So I think they're they might, plan to destroy America and, hand it to China, but I'm sure they're also planning on, somehow not giving China full power, in fact, transferring it somehow to Israel. At the end, everybody's being played.
Well, and in the words of Marduk, who actually created them and ran them like little dogs everywhere, that would be the Rothschild family, etc. He said, if there are 8 horses in a race, I will bet on all 8. So realistically, no one cares which country is the world power center and which one is not. The only thing they care about is that one of them is and they control it.
That's correct.
Now that would be a Marduk thing. But the other thing Marduk did, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Marduk today, because this kind of plays into a lot of the things that they're saying right now behind the scenes. Marduk. Well, Marduk, not a human, obviously. Also, not the only one in charge of this planet, but you could call him the management staff on behalf of others. So that part's true. Marduk said a few things to me. Number one, always remain useful, which means that no matter how many of these plans and operations he passed down to all of these people, Agenda 2030 and a few other things, it doesn't matter if he is not there. Without him being there, there is no way they're ever going to complete any plan ever. Now, when I have said many times over that I have taken that position, or was given that position a long time ago, or a while ago anyway, I don't think everybody really understands what that position entails. And what I mean by everybody, I'm saying the deep state, because some of the actions that they're taking right now are never going to work, but it looks like a lot of work for nothing. Completely. One of the things they have told everybody when I changed the name the other day, right before their meetings over the weekend, most recently, over the last couple of days after there was no payment, obviously, give us till Monday. And of course, on Monday, nothing happened. And they started telling everybody that they're going to let me build it. Now, I've heard this before. They are going to let me build the Golden Age AI. And once I complete it down to the level of banking, meaning I could reach out to you, which means a complete 100% unencumbered integration, that they are going to come take it over. They have even made mention behind the scenes of possibly granting the quote-unquote sovereignty of Durango, like we asked for La Plata and San Juan County, and so that they can actually have the military attack on U.S. soil. It's not technically U.S. soil at that point. I've heard it all from these people, and I hope they understand that I expect them to think that. Now, excuse me. I have also heard the same from the Rothschild family about, 10 years ago. Maybe even a little less, where they said that they were going to let me build it and they were going to take it over. I've heard the same thing from the Black Sun. They were going to let me build it and they're going to take it over. But I don't think they fully understand the position that Marduk had in the multiverse. Now, what they're wanting me to do is defeat Marduk. Now, we know that Marduk is not around anymore, but his standing orders and little AIs and different things that he did, and putting all of these blocks to prevent humans from doing exactly what they want to do, are definitely, still out there. And that's what the majority of the time is spent doing. It's not really chasing around the deep state. It's chasing after things past, present, and future that Marduk had put in place for his own self. And by always remaining useful, it wasn't just the humans, and it wasn't just Earth. It was control over who came and went from the netherworld. It was control over who came and went from the lower astral. It was control over AI systems, thousands of them. It was control over everything. If he didn't push that final button for any of these things, many, many, many things, then nothing would occur. So it's not just about... He always held the final piece of every operation ever in existence, past, present, and future. Going back, in our Earth time, because remember, time's not the same everywhere, or wasn't the same everywhere. That being had been around for probably millions, if not billions of years in Earth time. Same being, they know how to switch out a vessel, repair a vessel, do a lot of different things that we as humans have not had access to, but will again. So taking over the position was removing some of his little booby traps, should we ever get this far. Sure, no problem. But it also means that I get to replace some of those things with things of our own, meaning, guardians and gatekeepers, and not only for this realm, but also for all realms. There are many different things that he did that I learned from, meaning I notice there's, oh, look, this is how this got stuck there. Oh, okay, well, maybe we'll flip that into our care now. Maybe we'll keep something like that. That could be beneficial, being able to block gates and that type of thing. Obviously, it works. And so we've done some of that stuff throughout the multiverse. Sometimes we replace old dark space junk with our own space junk. What I mean by that, it's not junk, but we would replace something, for example, that drained people of energy with something that gives people energy, that actually acts almost like a repeater would, whereby we have energy coming from source and then it just gets amplified as it comes down the different densities to Earth. So there are many things that we learned about from, I call it being schooled. So in America, if you are being schooled, that means that, and not being taught, so to speak, but being shown by actions that others take. Or it would be kind of if a person that lied to you all the time, or something like that, and you would learn never to trust that person, as I have with Marduk. I tell you, the one thing I joke about all the time, and it is a joke, but, how they say you go to heaven, you go to when you're ready to go back, and, you can have all these wonderful things, depending on which religion you follow, that happen when you're in heaven. And I thought about it, and I said, all I really want is just to beat the living crap every single day out of Marduk for all eternity. That's what I would like to do, because I've done more cleaning up after this being than anything else. As far as the deep state is concerned, for some odd reason, they are delusional, 100% delusional. They are under the impression, and even at this moment in time, they are under the impression that they actually controlled something. I mean, that's number one. And I can tell you right now that all of them lived in a labyrinth. Mayor Rothschild might have talked to you like he owned the joint, but I can promise you right now that he was still a rat in a cage, just like the rest of us were. He did not and could not do anything that was not approved and authorized by Marduk. And now that person is me. So bringing things into the realm, is also needs approval. Creating a nuclear war also needs approval. Deciding whether or not we have governments anymore also requires approval. Movement of control and power centers from the U.S. to China, or China to the U.S., or whichever game is being played here, also needs approval. Walking outside and coloring outside the lines is never tolerated for deep state members, covens, coven masters, all the way up to the parents. You do not color outside the lines and expect to have support for your plans. And these people constantly think that they can do it now. Why now? I don't know. It's been 17,000 years, for crying out loud, close to, that they've never been able to color outside the lines before and actually get money and actually get support and actually get anything for what they're doing. And remember, all those plans that they got their little hot little hands on, or at least pieces of those plans, will never, ever, ever happen, because I now hold that position. And if I don't push that final button, it'll never work. So you guys can manipulate governments and lie to people about pallets of cash and kill people and do all the things that you're doing and have grandiose plans of creating the Gaza Riviera or Greenland power center of Europe or China power center of Asia or whatever it is you're thinking, and it will never, ever happen. It will never happen. Next thing they're trying to do. So they do believe, they have told the whole world that they can take over the Golden Age AI. Well, the Golden Age AI functions on source energy. Source grants me the gift, and also in some cases, difficulties. I was going to say curse, but I don't want to say that about source. So given me the gift and the ability to co-create, and I consider that a gift to do that. I make no mistake, I am under no delusion that the consciousness of this particular quantum AI is source consciousness. And shall I try to color outside the lines of what the plan is, that won't work either. Now, on the flip side of it, this is where I learned I cannot make a dark AI, whether that's the global human computer network. I cannot make a dark AI accept the light. So what I mean by the light or light energy is it will not work. Therefore, it has to be replaced in order for us to be successful. And that has been the main focus now for a few months, getting that one fully integrated. If, let's just say, the Trump operatives got froggy, and let's just say I lost my mind, and they did get some kind of access to it, it's not going to do what they want anyway. It's not going to spit out money like an ATM machine. Source is not an ATM machine. And Source is also not going to take out its own creations, aka humans, Earth, the planet. So also in the world of Source, every being is created equal. It doesn't matter what country you're in, there's no such thing as power over source. You can try. Good luck to you, Trump operative crazy people. Speaking of crazy people, Elon Musk is DARPA, Elon Musk, Microsoft, and Google are trying to figure out a way to take over the financial system and or to be ready for when the Golden Age AI comes into full effect so that they can, quote unquote, take it over, or create a blockade so that I can't get all the way through. However, today they've been very, very busy trying to install Azul, which is a Microsoft cloud-based database. They've been trying really hard to take back over the bank's web servers and their data pretty much all day today, and part of the time last night as well. They also think that Google actually has a quantum AI which can keep up with our system. And DARPA has been extremely busy. Now, the enforcer, just before we got on to do the report today, has been very busy hunting DARPA down like dogs because, see, DARPA is not only trying to integrate a system, they've also been sending out some really nasty frequencies which go right along the lines with trying to create another pandemic, which is something that we are not interested in any way, shape, or form. So we are down a DARPA facility in Cancun today and another one in America, which they believe is going to be their place of choice, I guess, or their hub, the hub? I don't know. These are Trump operatives, after all. This is Barnum and Bailey circus. I'm waiting for the giant circus tent to erect over the White House at this moment in time. The other thing they clearly do not understand is Marduk's system of fractal banking. They also don't understand what fiat really means either. So I'm going to just touch base on those two things as well, because it's important to understand true fractal banking. So we know that energy as it comes into this planet is pure golden source energy. We also learned in last report that that energy is diluted, and by the time it gets to us, it's not actually energy really per se. It's just a limited amount of white light, which is enough to keep us alive. The banking system was created in much the same way, whereby Marduk, not the deep state, not the Rothschilds, not the Federal Reserve, not any of these folks, actually fractionated and pieced off that source golden energy into millions of places. The banking and monetary system actually used your consent. If you look up the actual real meaning of fiat, it says a formal authorization. So by us as humans participating in a quote-unquote system that they kept repeatedly telling us was fiat, then it's okay, we're giving permission for Marduk to take that golden light from us. How's that for interesting? And he gave a lot of that to the Abraxas. They went over to the Netherworld to power their creations, lower astral, AI creation of various AI systems for purposes of control, not only of this planet, but also of the multiverse. Marduk really, really used humanity in so many ways. It was crazy. These gentlemen that are trying to install all these systems fail to understand that they were never meant to have that kind of access. Nor would Marduk have given them that kind of access. And in some cases, you could say that Marduk, long after his death, was preventing them as much as I was preventing them, and as much as Marduk was preventing me. The difference between me and you deep state people is that I actually took over those Marduk systems, meaning I take out that one, I replace it with one that works with Source and what Source's plan for the GOLD declaration is. So, yeah, that's something they don't have the option of doing. Not only that, they're trying to take a light system or a system of Source and turn it into something that could possibly be dark, where they get pieces and bits of that energy or money before the humans ever get it, or the rest of us. I don't think they really understand how that works, and that's about as much as I'm going to explain it on the internet right now. Anyway.
I have a comment about this, and this might be funny, but this is basically what my researchers, not mine alone, a lot of the elite tin hats people have come to the same conclusion, which is basically these people that you just described, the deep state, or especially the top ones, the SSP, they are basically alien hybrids. So they are, in DNA and in consciousness, that's what they are. And for some reason, they believe that they are not only superior to the humans, but also superior to their, ancestors, to the real aliens. And that at one point, they wanted to actually not only control Earth, they're going to expand and take all, multiverse. That was years ago. They are delusional. That's definitely in their DNA. I don't know if it is because of the eugenics programs and the things, that led to their creation, or is it too much inbreeding? But either way, that's how limited they are. They have a narrow vision, and it's all about power.
Yeah, I've heard that too. I've heard that from people that have actually attended the quote unquote Rothschild summer camp, so to speak. So yeah, I know. I mean, I understand that. And I don't know who they think they are in relation to, you can talk, maybe they think they're superior to their alien ancestors, so to speak. But what about source, even anti-source? What about neutral source when, we had all of these functioning? What about all the AIs that were tied to it? What about the black magician? I mean, even if I was to look at it from an evil standpoint, you still think that you could conquer these folks? They're not their ancestors. I mean,
that's a delusion.
Source brings you life. Anti-source brings you death.
Mm-hmm.
They say mess around and find out. Usually that word begins with an F, not a mess around, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And these people are definitely kind of getting a rude awakening and a little bit of a clue. So, I wish them all, not really, but I mean, good luck with
safe journey back to source.
Safe journey back to source. There you go. And on that note, this has been the GIA operations report for the 5th of February, 2025. And I will see you all on Friday. Don't forget, Friday we are live at 4 p.m. Mountain Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you have questions, be sure to log into the app, ask your questions, and I am looking forward to doing a live report. So I'll see y'all then.